Let's get to the Philadelphia Eagles links. Reunion with Carson Wentz? Easton Stick makes plenty of sense for Eagles. ESPNWhen Wentz broke a bone in his throwing wrist 6 games into his senior season. Stick stepped in as a redshirt freshman and guided the team to 5 straight wins to put the Bison in the national title game. An eerily similar sequence unfolded a couple years later when Foles took over for an injured Wentz during the Eagles' Super Bowl run. The key difference here was that Wentz returned for the big finale. Hearing that Wentz would be cleared in time for the title game, Stick approached the coaching staff and encouraged them to play Wentz because, as Stick put it, it was Wentz's team. Wentz ran for 2 touchdowns and threw for another against Jacksonville State to deliver North Dakota State a championship and solidify his standing as a top NFL prospect. Stick would have his time to shine. He started the next 3 seasons and compiled an insane record of 49-3 to become the winningest quarterback in FCS history. The Bison won it all in each of his final 2 seasons at the helm. A dual threat, he threw 28 touchdowns to 7 interceptions this past season while rushing for another 17 TDs. NFL Draft QB Deep Dive. Roto-World. Stick won 3 FCS titles at NDSU, the colossus of the subdivision that gave us Carson Wentz. Forget Carson Wentz. Stick is nothing like him as a prospect. Stick is a fabulous athlete, slower by a tick than Taysom Hill with less explosion, but with superior agility, who is a weapon in the open field. This part of his game doesn't get discussed enough, I think, because evaluators who dismiss him because of the height, arm strength thing or the shrine week don't get far enough along in their thought process to bake it into what it could mean in the NFL. Also, because Stick is difficult to wrap up in the backfield, difficult to corral when he gets moving downfield, and, heck, difficult to catch from behind. You can't dismiss Stick's deep sector touch as a context-based fluke, because Stick's skill set itself is in part informing that context. On RPOs, for instance, linebackers and safeties need to be extremely cognizant of the fact that Stick could tuck and rip off a 25-yard run in 3 seconds. 5 bold predictions for Eagles 2019 draft. 2 Bulgarian loves. The Eagles select Ole Miss WRDK Metcalf. Here's how you construct quasi-hot takes. You take something that is well-known, combine it with something that's basically unknown, and then zest on a bit of self-imposed incredulity, to emphasize the unknown bit over the known bit. Watch closely. I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's a chance that DK Metcalf, yes, that DK Metcalf, will be the Eagles' first-round selection. How could that be, you ask? After that combine performance, after his incredible play in college, how could he be available at 25 overall? A few factors influence the perceived Metcalf fall here. First-round trades that have worked out in the past. PFF. Carson Wentz hit the ground running in his debut season with some stellar performances early in the year, but his sophomore season, the Eagles' Super Bowl winning one, is what proved the trade to be worthwhile. He'd eventually go down with an injury, but before then Wentz was a legitimate MVP candidate, dominating in all phases of the game. He was simply sensational on third down plays that year, where he led all quarterbacks in passing grade, 93.3, big-time throws, 15 yards per attempt, 9.5, and passer rating, 123.7. While he didn't quite manage to return to that level last year, his 2018 performance was still worthy of a 14th-ranked overall grade of 79.4, proving that he's more than capable of leading this team for the next decade. Eagles 2019 NFL Draft Preview. Safety, Philly voice Jonathan Abram, Mississippi State 5'11", 205. Abram is a player who has commonly been given to the Eagles in the first round of mock drafts. I don't see much in the way of separation between him and some of the other safeties below who can be had in round 2. I do like Abram's game, and what really stands out is that he is a very tough, confident, physical player who looks to deliver big shots whenever given the opportunity. Unfortunately, what highlight reels like that don't show are the missed tackles as a result of trying to deliver the knockout blow, and Abram has plenty of those. For example, CFBFilmroom.com had him down for 12 missed tackles in 2017, though he did clean it up a bit in 2018, when he had 5. Abrams' potential fit in the Eagles' offense would be interesting. In the short term, you'd want to get him on the field immediately, I'd imagine, which would mean a shift to heavy utilization of 3 safety sets. But again, the value in round 1 just isn't there for me. The next Nelly, Eagles blitz. While Sidney Jones hasn't played at a high level yet, it is too early to give up on him. Nelson Agholor was healthy in 2015 and 2016 and still found his way to rock bottom. In his third year, Agholor woke up and started playing well. He's a changed man. Jones could still have a bright future in the NFL. He can learn from the struggles of Agholor and Brandon Graham. You can be a high pick and still take time to develop, due to injuries or other factors. We don't know if Jones will ever pan out or not, but this wasn't a reach or dump pick by the Eagles. Jones was a terrific cover corner in college. No one questioned his talent. You could argue whether he should have gone at 10 or 15 or 20, but he was going to be a first-round pick. The injury happened and changed things in a hurry. Unfortunately, Jones hasn't been the same since. That could change this year, but nothing is guaranteed. Some players who get off to a slow start never overcome that, and they don't get better. 3 Nelson Agholor replacements for Philadelphia Eagles. The Draft Network. Eerily, Deebo Samuel, South Carolina. It's easiest to see how Samuel's role with the Gamecocks translates to Agholor's role with the Eagles. Both got quick, schemed targets designed to maximize run-after-catch abilities. Both split time between the slot and wide alignments, and were asked to run a smorgasbord of routes from those alignments. Both used their route running to separator. I like Samuel better in contested situations, despite the fact that he's a bit smaller in stature and has a narrower catch radius. It comes down to Samuel's thickness, as he's a stacked player who is unafraid of contact. Long-term health might be a concern here, but Samuel's an instant starter and potential upgrade in Agholor's role. For Eagles player personnel VP Joe Douglas, the next NFL draft is his most important. Inquirer, we also at some point are going to lose executives. Lurie said in Phoenix at the NFL owners meetings. When you're winning, you're going to lose executives, and I think we're in a great position to be able to deal with that. Was Lurie already resigned to losing Douglas to a better opportunity, or was he foreshadowing a mutual departure? The Eagles had already blocked the Texans from interviewing him for their general manager opening during their Super Bowl run. But that was before last season's regression and the further sampling of Douglas's first 2 drafts. It typically takes at least 3 years to give any sort of accurate evaluation on a class, but the Eagles' 2017-18 drafts are particularly difficult to assess because so many of the prospects have hardly played, either because of injury or the depth of the roster. The Eagles have been able to sustain the lack of contributions because of the existing nucleus and other moves they have made. But the need for compensation will only grow as the roster ages, and, more significant, once quarterback Carson Wentz is signed to a salary cap restricting contract extension. Are Eagles more likely to trade up or down in 2019 draft? NBC ESPN Roseman has talked before about the usual talent cutoff in first rounds. There are only a certain amount of difference makers atop every draft. It differs by team, and on Tuesday, he said most drafts don't have 32 legitimate first-round grades on players. He, of course, didn't say whether or not this is one of those years, as to not tip his hand. But the Eagles are already running through all the hypothetical situations. And this is the time where preliminary phone calls between teams about draft day intentions start happening. Roseman always says trades happen because of relationships around the league. So the reason Roseman didn't answer the question on Tuesday is because he probably really doesn't know what's going to happen when the draft kicks off. He certainly has more of an idea than he let on. I still think the Eagles are in prime trade-up territory, but there's no point in tipping his hand. Meet the prospect, the Brian Burns. Pay.com step into the film to learn about athletic defensive end Brian Burns in the latest Meet the Prospect. Matt Miller's scouting notebook, biggest insider rumors of the 2019 NFL Draft. B. One of the burning questions in the NFL is where the wide receivers will come off the board. The expectation, after speaking to multiple scouts and executives, is that 1. Marquise Brown is a surefire first-rounder with 1 or 2 others, DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, possibly going in the top 32. This means many receivers could fly off the board when the second round starts. Deebo Samuel, N'Keal Harry, Paris Campbell and Hakeem Butler are the next guys up. Dave Gettleman, I like my resume so far. PFT, I've been to 7 Super Bowls, Gettleman said to Steve Politi of NJ.com. I feel very strongly that I know what it should look like, what it should smell like, what it should taste like. And so, you can look at me and say, well, I either know what I'm doing or I'm a big fat rabbit's foot. Neither one's bad, right? I like my resume so far. BLG note, me too. Dave Valentine's views, time for the Daniel Jones era? Plus, Dave Gettleman's legacy, and more. Big Blue View thought that the Giants could choose Jones as the heir apparent to Manning, perhaps even as early as the 6th overall pick in the draft, horrifies some. If Jones is indeed their guy, that should, however, surprise no one. Jones and the Giants have looked like an obvious match for months. The connection to the Manning family via Duke coach David Cutcliffe, who trained both Eli and Peyton back in the day. The fact that David Morris, backup to and roommate of Eli Manning at Ole Miss, is Jones' personal quarterback coach. The similarities in temperament. The idea that on the field Jones reminds some of Manning with better mobility. If Gettleman chooses Jones at either number 6 or at number 17, there are plenty of self-made draft analysts and media know-it-alls who will snicker. The narrative will almost certainly include some version of calling him Clueless Dave and proclaiming that his plan must be to make sure the Giants continue to flounder. 2019 NFL Draft Fantasy Profiles, QB Daniel Jones, fake teams reviewing his tape, even his highlights don't show Jones to have an elite arm. He floats too many balls, especially when throwing deep, which will lead to interceptions at the next level, and the throws where he drives the ball into tight spaces are almost non-existent. However, he excels at throwing fades in the red zone, showing great touch and using his height to loft the ball for his receivers to go up and get. He is a strong runner and is hard to bring down when he gets going, thanks to his long stride, and has enough size to be a threat in the red zone. His NFL comp is Josh Allen, but not as well built, but whereas Allen has a low floor but extremely high ceiling thanks to his elite arm and athleticism, Jones I think has a slightly higher floor but a much lower ceiling. Report, Seahawks open to trading Frank Clark but want at least a first-round pick. Included, field goals were less than a week away from the 2019 NFL Draft, and the future of Seattle Seahawks Dr. Frank Clark is very much in doubt. Having developed into a standout pass rusher in 2018, Clark was given the franchise tag, 1 year, $17.1 million by the Seahawks in lieu of a long-term deal. There has been discussion that Clark may be on the trading block, and ESPN's Adam Schefter did report on Saturday that if Seattle does send Clark elsewhere, they want something big in return. Ask a former NFL player, will Nick Bosa's tweets be an issue in the locker room? SB Nation. The Bosa topic is an interesting one. First off, no one in the locker room cares about Bosa's tweets. They care about winning. Can Bosa help you win? Yes, that's what matters. Also, there are plenty of players in the locker room who support President Donald Trump and share the same political values as Bosa. And guess what? We all get along. It's not social media, where everyone is angry all the time. In 2016, heading into the election, a Lions teammate and I had discussions every single day about Hillary Clinton versus Trump. We argued, we counter-argued, and we got heated at times. But we were still friends. That's the way most people discuss politics. Social media information, BGN Facebook page, click here to like our page. BGN Twitter, follow at Bleeding Green. BGN Manager, Brandon Lee Godin, follow at Brandon Godin. BGN Radio Twitter, follow at BGN_radio. Let's block ads. Why?